Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This time we are going to look at the bottom 5 monsters in 9th Age. This is going to be the final category in this entire series, so it's been a long ride, and I am sure that a lot of you enjoyed it, based on the comments that a lot of people also gave. Yeah, this final one. So yeah, without further ado, let's just get into it. On my number 5 spot for the worst monster in 9th Age, to me this is gonna be the Orcs and Goblins Great Green Idol. And I know that a lot of people are quite a fan of this guy. I'm actually not that much of a fan, because it's quite vulnerable to some specific types of damage. So it's quite vulnerable to poison or many attacks. Because the main thing that it relies on is its resilience 8. And whereas a Undying Dynasties War Sphinx with resilience 8 still has a lot of damage output itself, the Great Green Idol doesn't really, with only 3 attacks at offensive 2 at strength 6. It does have a crush attack, and crush attack can come in quite handy, mostly against characters. However, then your offensive 2 is really holding you back, because a lot of characters actually have defensive 6 or higher, so you'll only be hitting them on 5 plus. Alternatively, you have 3 attacks that hit on 4 plus with strength 6. You really have to go for your crush or for your stomp d6 then against infantry. Against anything other than infantry, it doesn't really perform that well. It is quite nice that you reroll to wound rolls of 1s with melee attacks from the Great Green Idol itself and any units within 6 inches. Yeah, it's I get why people like it, because it is quite a specific counter to some things. It's also quite a decent BSB because it has still 6 hit points with resilience 8. However, if you only use it as a BSB and not anything else, then you're spending near 500 points for a BSB. I think there's more efficient ways of getting a BSB in your list. So yeah, that is basically my opinion on the Great Green Idol. I don't know if I missed anything, but I don't think it's the best choice in the book. Then we'll go to the number 4 spot. To me, this is gonna be the Dread Elves KRAKEN. The Kraken only has 4 attacks, and that is one of my main issues with it. It has 4 attacks at offensive 5, so that's already quite a bit better than the Great Green Idol. It's at strength 7, AP 3. Don't forget that it's only AP 3, not AP 4. And it is basically targeted against monsters with hatred against large and gigantic. And then it's quite okay because of the multiple wounds D3. However, against anything that isn't a monster, you are going to struggle a bit with the Kraken. So I've had times where I play the Kraken, I send it into some infantry, you just roll a Thunder Stomp or a Stomp d6 on of like a 1 or so. And then basically with your 4 attacks up against parry, you're going to hit twice, you're going to have a Stomp, so that's like 3 wounds. The Lash Masters might do a wound, but you're quite likely to just lose the combat even. And then at that point, yeah, if you lose your Kraken to just the standard block infantry, I would also consider always the Hydra to be the better of the two. Points have caught up a little bit between the Hydra and the Kraken. However, the Hydra, just with its breath attack and with the extra attacks it gets from getting wounds, and also with regeneration rather than distracting as a defensive buff, it's in my view way better than the Kraken. I have never tried, however, the Colossal Kraken, and this might make a bit of a difference with the 2 additional Lash Masters. I don't know. One of the issues also with the Kraken is that there's a lot of things that circumvent distracting and a hard target, such as reroll with Battle Focus, or some auto hits like impact hits or grind attacks, or just characters that have a really good offensive profile. And then it doesn't really work that well to have a Kraken that has only distracting as its defensive buff, basically. And in addition, it also doesn't work with divination as a lore, which is quite a popular lore for Dread Elves for the Temple Legate. Because in that case, you can cast Distracting on your Kraken, which won't do anything, or you can increase the defense by 2. If your defense 7, then obviously offensive 3 stuff is gonna suddenly hit your Kraken. However, anything that has strength 4 or higher generally also has offensive 4 or higher. Unless you're just talking about rank and file infantry, but then you don't really want your Kraken in there anyway, so yeah, with the Kraken, you're not going to grind through infantry, or at least that is my personal experience. Maybe I should just charge it a little bit more together with other stuff, and then it might do a bit better. But in my experience, the Kraken is not on the top of my list. Then we go to the number 3 choice. This is going to be the Vampire Counts Shrieking Horror. I find that they are really one-shot missiles. So like fire and forget, because, well, you do the amount of wounds basically to a target similar to the hit points that you have left. And you have a model that has reanimation 1, and, well, you can still heal it a bit through Gates of the Netherworld. However, if your magic goes all the way into just healing back your Shrieking Horror, you're not doing anything else. So basically at the point where your opponent has dealt some damage to your Shrieking Horror, the combat output and the ranged output really goes down quite quickly. Because even if it only has taken 3 wounds, so it's at half health, it will only deal 3 hits in the shooting phase. And sure, they are just hits that automatically inflict health point losses. However, yeah, I don't really think it's worth it in that respect. It does have fly 16, so you can just fly out one turn and go for it. And you can effectively remove just quite a lot of stuff like monsters. However, on the other hand, do you really need it? Do you really need a monster that is 510 points itself in order to get rid of a monster of the opponent? Basically, if the answer is yes, you're just trying to play a game that is like 3,500 points instead of the 4,500, which might be a viable strategy. However, yeah, it's not really the way that I like to play. Yeah, if you include them, I would include probably 2 of them, and I would include some magical movement spells. These magical movement spells have gotten a bit of an upgrade with Danse Macabre going to a 12-inch move, I believe. So you can take Lamia, so you can have Ravenswing and Danse Macabre together. You can have Danse Macabre still as bound spell, so you can ensure that you can do your magical movement basically with your Shrieking Horror. And then I would probably focus full down on a list with 2 times 10 raids, two Shrieking Horrors, and then basically you have everything in the army that you would want to make a magical move with. And in that case, it can still be quite a decent piece. The next pick for me is going to be a bit of an odd one out, because it's not necessarily a monster. However, in my view, it has always been a monster. It's going to be the Saurian Ancients THYROSCUTUS. Yeah, I know it's not officially a monster, but I mean, just it's a surprise, you know. So the Saurian Ancients THYROSCUTUS, it's 240 points, so it gets into the range of the monster costs basically. But I don't think it really adds anything to your army that is not already there. I also rarely see them on the battlefield. And I think it's mostly because in the army you already have other pieces that do the same thing and that can come out of core, for example, Saurius Warriors, or the Temple Guard that you really like to play your Quarter Lord in. So the only rule in the army, based on its profile, is that you rely on 5 hit points with Resilience 5 for the 1 of armor save, Stubborn. And offensively, you have a crush attack, same as the Great Green Idol. Basically, the offensive profile is the same, except for the fact that the strength is, well, 2 lower. And you can give it the upgrade of the Altar of the Snake God, so that it has an additional 2d6 attacks at strength 2 with poison. And that is quite funny. However, you're not going to win combats with this monster. And 5 hit points I mean, if you want to build a defensive strategy around getting charged and then countercharging, then usually it's better to play more hit points of a lesser quality than a few hit points of a higher quality. Because a lot of people tend to bring counters. For example, if you face a Shrieking Ore and you have a THYROSCUTUS, then the Shrieking Ore is just going to march up. It's going to scream your THYROSCUTUS to death, and then, well, that's it, basically. It can't do the same with a big block of Skinks or a big block of Sauruses or whatever, or anything else in the army that would be a comparable cost, like 240 points. So in that regard, I like the design. It's just the design that doesn't really work, I think. Then for the number 1 spot, this is actually a monster rather than a large cavalry model. So the number 1 spot for me is gonna go to the Beast Herds Jabberwock. Yeah, why is this so bad then? You see them occasionally in armies where you have a Wizard Master on avocation normally. So you can combine it with Whispers of the Veil for another -1 discipline. Because what the Jabberwock does is that enemy units within 6 inches of the Jabberwock get -1 discipline. It is a gigantic beast, so it already in base contact it causes fear, so you get a -1 discipline if you're not fearless. And combine that with Whispers of the Veil from avocation, you're looking at a -3 discipline. And that is quite impressive, obviously. Also, this not only helps breaking enemy units, it also helps making the fear test more difficult. With defensive 4, it's quite a sweet spot to be at because a lot of stuff is going to hit you on 4+. With the fear pass, with the fear check failed, then you're going to be hit on 5+. You have resilience 5, you have armor 3. It's defensively it's a Kraken in that regard if the opponent fails the fear check. Offensively, it's also basically a Kraken with 4 attacks at strength 5, offensive 4. So yeah, in that regard, it's just a better Kraken. The issue arises when you realize that about half of the units in the game, or I think like 70% of the units that matter in the game, or the combat units that people focus on, are either fearless or immune to fear, or have discipline 10 with a reroll with either minimized or something else. In the game it just doesn't work. It's a gamble to play it because, well, there's already demons, Undying Dynasties, Vampire Covenant that don't care at all about fear. Infernal Dwarfs, I don't think care too much. Regular Dwarfs don't really care too much. Vermin Swarm cares, but has minimized rolls with discipline. Vermin Swarm might be the one where the minuses on the discipline make it really, really hard for them to pass it. But yeah, the point is basically that there are some armies where the fear is really gonna make a difference. In these armies, it's quite likely that they can focus on your Jabberwock, on your 2 Jabberwocks, because you can take 2 of them. And then, yeah, if that is the scariest thing in your list to that specific army, they're gonna focus on them, and then your Jabberwock is going to be jabbered out. So that's going to be it. I'm curious to hear if you agree with my list or if you don't. And I'll see you the next time.